He's not like us, my mom whispered to my aunt. He's defective. I was 13. I never forgot. This year, I sent her one birthday gift, a framed photo of me on stage with a certain billionaire. She called me crying. I didn't pick up. You know when a single moment in your life just becomes the dividing line between everything before and everything after? For me, it was 4 words I wasn't supposed to hear. 4 words at my own birthday party. I don't usually post personal stuff, mostly just lurk in our PC Master Race and our programming. But something happened recently that made me want to share this. Consider it a villain origin story. Or maybe a redemption arc. Whatever. I'm still figuring out what to call it. So, my 13th birthday. The day I learned exactly what my mother thought of me. Growing up, I was always the weird kid. Not in the quirky, endearing way that makes for heartwarming coming-of-age movies. Just off. I couldn't read social cues, made eye contact about as naturally as a cat does with a vacuum cleaner, memorized entire Wikipedia pages, but couldn't remember to brush my teeth without a reminder app. My family lived in one of those suburbs where everyone's life goal seemed to be winning the perfectly normal family Olympic. 3-bedroom houses with nearly identical floor plans, kids who played the right sports, parents who worked the right jobs. My mom, Barbara, was basically the gold medalist in this competition. For context, Mom was the type who spent 45 minutes getting ready to go to the grocery store, who rearranged the living room furniture before anyone came over, who practiced her laugh in the bathroom mirror. Yes, really, I caught her once. Everything was about appearance. Everything was about fitting in. Then there was me, her glitch in the matrix. I knew I was different pretty early on. Kindergarten was my first clue. The teacher called my parents because I wouldn't participate in group activities. Not because I was shy, because they were boring AF compared to the solar system book I'd found. Why sing The Wheels on the Bus when you could learn about neutron stars? By 3rd grade, the parent-teacher conferences always had the same theme. Ethan is incredibly bright, but struggles socially, has trouble connecting with peers, doesn't participate appropriately. Mom would smile tightly during these meetings, her fingers gripping her purse like she was strangling it. At home, she'd mutter about how I just needed to try harder to be normal. The contrast with my cousin Benjamin was, let's call it, stark. Benjamin was exactly 13 months older than me, and apparently assembled in some laboratory for creating socially acceptable children. Sports trophies, student council, that effortless popularity that some kids just have. Every family gathering became an exhibition match, where Benjamin demonstrated the correct way to exist, while I demonstrated whatever it is I do. Our moms are sisters. My Aunt Molly is basically Mom 2.0, but with slightly different settings. Same obsession with appearances, but with more wine and less passive-aggressive sighing. My dad, Mason, classic NPC energy. Not a bad guy. Just there. Conflict avoidant to the point of basically being a furniture accessory. He'd occasionally try to connect with me over some tech thing he'd heard about on the news, but it was like watching someone try to speak a language they'd only heard once on TV. Anyway, the birthday party. Mom had insisted on throwing me a proper birthday with actual kids from school. This was her periodic attempt to forcibly integrate me into the social ecosystem. It always went about as well as trying to install Mac OS on a toaster. The party was scheduled for 2 p.m. By 2:30, exactly 2 kids had shown up, both clearly forced by their parents. The living room had balloons, a sad stack of party games no 13-year-old would willingly play, and an atmosphere thick enough with disappointment to choke on. I'd retreated to my room to grab my Nintendo DS. If I had to endure this social crucifixion, at least I could play Pokémon through it. On my way back downstairs, I heard Mom and Aunt Molly talking in the kitchen. They didn't see me freeze on the 3rd step from the bottom, just out of sight. Mom was using her quiet but intense voice, the one that sounds like a pressure cooker about to explode. She was telling Aunt Molly about how embarrassing it was that no one had come to the party, how she'd have to face all the other moms knowing her son was the classroom reject. Then she said it. "He's not like us," she whispered to my aunt. He's defective. Defective! Like I was a product that had rolled off the assembly line with a manufacturing error, a faulty appliance, something you'd return to the store for a refund. My aunt didn't disagree. She made this small humming sound, that universal noise of uncomfortable agreement, then asked if Mom had considered getting me extra help. Not the kind that actually helps, but the kind that makes me less embarrassing at family functions. I stood there, DS clutched in my hand, feeling like I'd been simultaneously dunked in ice water and set on fire. Time did that weird, stretchy thing where 3 seconds feels like 3 hours. What do you do when you hear something like that? In the movies, the kid would dramatically reveal themselves. There'd be a tearful confrontation, and eventually, some kind of healing moment. What I did was quietly climb back upstairs, sit on my bed, and start a new Pokemon game. Named my rival character Barbara. I didn't cry, didn't confront her, just filed it away. Like a system log recording a critical error. The rest of the party was a blur. I went through the motions, blew out candles on a chocolate cake no one ate, opened presents I didn't want, thanked the 2 random classmates who clearly couldn't wait to escape. Mom never knew I heard her. I never told her. What would be the point? She'd deny it, or worse, try to explain why she was right. After that day, something changed in me. Not dramatically. I didn't suddenly become a different person, but something shifted. Like when you're playing a game and suddenly realize the rules you've been following don't actually exist. I stopped trying to be what she wanted, stopped pretending I cared about fitting in, started embracing the things that made me different. Computers became my thing, my real thing. Not just games, though yeah, plenty of those too, but actual programming, learning how systems work, creating order from chaos. Code doesn't judge you for being awkward or different. Code just cares if you're right or wrong. Mom hated it, called it my little hobby, in the same tone you'd use for a potentially contagious rash. Every hour I spent at my computer was, in her eyes, another hour I was choosing to be defective. High school was, well, high school, a special kind of hell designed specifically for people who don't fit in. But I had my online friends, people I gamed with who didn't care that I sometimes info-dumped about obscure programming languages or forgot basic social protocols. They just cared that I could help them level up or debug their project. The real battles happened at home. Every report card became a battlefield straight A's in math and science, but C's in subjects that required group participation or oral presentations. Mom would look at those C's like they were personal insults aimed directly at her social standing. Junior year, the college discussions started. This was Mom's last chance to course-correct her defective son. She had a whole plan mapped out. Business degree, then law school, then a respectable career where I'd wear suits and have business cards and eventually marry someone who'd make appropriate small talk at neighborhood barbecues. I wanted to study computer science. The fight was epic. Not loud. Our family doesn't do loud, but cold, surgical. Mom deployed every weapon in her arsenal. Disappointment, financial threats, statistics about employment. The classic, you'll never support yourself playing with computers all day. Dad mostly studied his shoes during these discussions, occasionally offering neutral statements that helped absolutely no one. Benjamin, meanwhile, was being accepted to some prestigious business program, on track to fulfill the exact destiny my mother had planned for me. The family group chat was basically a Benjamin Appreciation Society, with Aunt Molly posting daily updates about his latest achievement. Mom forwarded every single one to me, usually with some variation of something to aspire to. The summer before senior year, I built my first serious program, a predictive algorithm that could analyze Twitter trends and predict which would go viral. Nothing revolutionary, but solid work for a 17-year-old self-taught coder. I showed it to Mom, hoping, I don't know what I was hoping, that she'd see I wasn't defective, just different, that my way of thinking had value. She glanced at my screen for approximately 3 seconds before asking if I'd started on my college applications yet. The business school ones, specifically. That was the moment I decided. I was done seeking her approval, done trying to prove I wasn't defective. I applied to 5 computer science programs without telling her, used my own savings from freelance coding gigs to pay the application fees, got into 4 of them, including my dream school with a partial scholarship. When the acceptance letter came, I left it on the kitchen counter where she'd find it, not hiding it, not flaunting it, just there. A fact. A reality she'd have to deal with. Mom found it while making dinner, read it with her face doing that thing where it tries to display 6 conflicting emotions simultaneously. Then she looked at me and said, I'd better have a backup plan for when this computer phase was over. I didn't argue, just nodded and went back to my room, opened my laptop, started coding. The next day, I bought my own domain name, started building a portfolio website, began reaching out to coding communities online. If Mom thought my interest in technology was just a phase, I'd show her how wrong she was. By graduation, I'd accepted the offer from my dream school. Mom had accepted that she couldn't stop me, though she made sure to mention at every opportunity how much more practical Benjamin's business degree would be. The night before I left for college, I overheard her talking to Dad. She was worried about how she'd explain my unusual choices to the extended family. Dad mumbled something about it being my life. Mom said that was exactly the problem. I was making choices that would affect all of them, as if my existence was primarily a reflection on her. I packed my computer, my clothes, and not much else. Left behind the carefully constructed persona of the son she wanted. Took with me the certainty that I was done trying to be something I wasn't. College was waiting. A fresh start, and the first step in a journey that would eventually lead to that framed photo. The one I'd send her years later. The one that would make her call me in tears. But that's a story for another post. Update. First off, thanks for all the comments on my last post. Didn't expect that kind of response. For those asking, yes, I'm still going to tell the rest of this story. No, I'm not interested in reconciling with my mother. Some bridges don't just burn, they get nuked from orbit. My college acceptance letter arrived on a Tuesday. I remember because the internet was out that morning. Some neighborhood-wide outage that had me twitching like an NPC with broken pathfinding. Mom had placed the mail on the kitchen counter in her usual organized pile. Bills, magazines, coupons she'd never use but couldn't bear to throw away. The envelope was thick. Good sign. Scholarships don't come in rejection letters. Mom walked in while I was reading it, paused by the fridge with this weird expression, like when your game glitches and a character model freezes between animations. She asked about the letter. I told her the news. Accepted with a partial scholarship to the computer science program. Her response? That it was nice I'd have something to fall back on when I realized I needed a real career. Nice tutorial level for what college would be like. Every achievement would come with a free side of dismissal. Move-in day was peak awkward. Mom spent the entire 3-hour drive talking about Benjamin's business school orientation the week before, how his dorm had mahogany furniture, how his roommate was the son of some banking executive, how he'd already been invited to join some prestigious fraternity. Dad helped carry my stuff to my room, a shoebox-sized space with cinder block walls, and a roommate who had apparently decided that cologne could substitute for showering. Mom didn't even get out of the car, claimed she had a migraine coming on. Her parting wisdom was to remind me that I could always transfer to a business program if this computer thing didn't work out. First semester hit me like a critical hit with no shield equipped. Turns out being smart in high school doesn't automatically translate to college-level success. My first programming midterm came back with a C+. My linear algebra homework might as well have been written in Klingon. The cafeteria was a sensory nightmare of sounds, smells, and social cues I couldn't decode. For 3 weeks straight, I barely slept. Lived on energy drinks and vending machine Pop-Tarts. Called home exactly once. A stilted 15-minute conversation where Mom mostly talked about the neighborhood HOA drama and how Benjamin had already made the dean's list. But then, something unexpected happened. I wasn't the weirdest person in the CS department. Not even close. There were people who made me look like a social butterfly. People who talked to their computers. People who hadn't changed their clothes in what appeared to be geological time period. And nobody cared. Nobody was keeping score on normality. By midterms, I'd found my groove. My programming assignments started coming back with actual positive feedback. I discovered office hours. Turns out professors will actually help you if you ask specific questions. Novel concept. I also met Ren in my algorithms class. She noticed me struggling with a particularly brutal assignment, and instead of ignoring me like a normal person, actually offered to help. We ended up forming a study group that consisted of exactly 2 people, plus occasional appearances from her pet betta fish on video calls. Ren was the first person who didn't treat my brain like it was running incompatible software. She'd just say things like, "Your processing is different," or "You're taking the scenic route to the solution." No judgment, just observation. Thanksgiving break was my first trip home. Mistake. Capital M, bold, italic, underlined mistake. The family dinner was essentially the Benjamin Show featuring special guest Ethan who disappoints everyone. Benjamin had joined some investment club. Benjamin had networked with important alumni. Benjamin had a girlfriend whose father owned a yacht. Meanwhile, I was asked if I'd made any normal friends yet, and whether I was still playing with computers all day. Mom had this way of asking questions that were actually statements. Do you think you should eat that second piece of pie? You're getting fat. Have you thought about joining a fraternity? Why can't you be more like Benjamin? Are you sure this computer degree will lead to a real job? You're wasting your potential and embarrassing me. I went back to school 2 days early, claiming I had a project due. Actually, just couldn't stomach another minute of being the family error message. By second semester, I'd found my people online. A Discord server full of CS students and self-taught programmers who communicated almost entirely in memes and code snippets. Some of them were actually building things, apps, algorithms, tools, not just studying theory, but creating. I started a side project, a simple algorithm to analyze and predict user behavior on streaming platforms. Nothing revolutionary, just interesting. Spent my weekends coding while my hallmates were out participating in whatever social rituals college students are supposed to enjoy. When summer break loomed, I applied for on-campus housing rather than go home. Told my parents I'd gotten a research opportunity. Not entirely a lie. I was researching, just self-directed. Mom seemed relieved not to have me home, though she made appropriate noises about missing me. Second year, I started to actually excel. Made Dean's List both semesters. Found a bug in one of the department's teaching tools and fixed it without being asked. Started tutoring first years in Python basics. Expanded my algorithm project to include more platforms and data points. Christmas break was, well, the title of this post comes from that special holiday memory. Picture it, the traditional family dinner. Extended families circling like sharks. Dad carving the turkey with the precision of someone defusing a bomb. Mom performing her role as Hostess magazine cover model. Benjamin arrived last, perfectly timed entrance, with his new girlfriend, some business school clone, with blonde highlights and a tennis scholarship. They looked like they'd been generated by an AI trained exclusively on J.Crew catalogs. Dinner conversation circled the usual topics. Benjamin's internship prospects, Aunt Molly's recent kitchen renovation, Mom's committee work for some charity gala. Then someone, Uncle Dave, I think, made the mistake of asking me about my studies. I made the mistake of answering honestly. Started explaining my algorithm project with actual enthusiasm. I was maybe 45 seconds into my explanation when I noticed everyone's expression. That glazed-over look people get when you're speaking a language they don't understand. My words trailed off mid-sentence. That's when Mom said it, with a little laugh that was supposed to make it sound less cruel. You'll never amount to anything special if you keep being like this, the verbal equivalent of pointing at something disgusting you found on your shoe. The table went quiet for exactly 3 seconds. Then Benjamin's girlfriend asked about the cranberry sauce recipe, and everyone gratefully latched onto the new topic. I spent the rest of break in my old room, door locked, headphones on, coding until my eyes burned. Spite is an excellent productivity hack. Junior year was my turning point. I expanded my algorithm project into something more sophisticated, a predictive model for identifying emerging trends across multiple platforms simultaneously. Presented it at an undergraduate research symposium. Won second place and a small cash prize. Called home to share the news. Dad seemed genuinely happy for me. Mom asked if this would help me get a proper job after graduation. By senior year, I'd built a solid portfolio of projects. My GPA was strong. My advisors suggested I consider graduate programs. For the first time, I felt like, maybe, just maybe, I wasn't defective after all. Different, yes, but functional. Valuable, even. Graduation was uncomfortable. Mom spent the entire ceremony taking photos of me that I knew were destined for her Facebook page, proof that she'd successfully launched another child into adulthood, despite his best efforts to malfunction. At the family lunch afterward, she introduced me to her friends as her son, who does computer things. One of them asked if I could fix her iPhone. I smiled and said I'd be happy to look at it right after Benjamin finished doing everyone's taxes since he studied business. Mom didn't speak to me for the rest of the meal. Post-graduation reality hit hard. Turns out having a degree and being good at coding doesn't automatically translate to job offers. I sent out 87 applications in the first month, got 12 form rejections, and 75 ghostings. Each week without a job offer seemed to validate everything my mother had ever said about me. Maybe I was defective. Maybe my brain really was wired wrong. Maybe I should have studied business like Benjamin, who had secured a position at his father's friend's company before he even graduated. I moved into a shitty studio apartment with a bathroom fan that sounded like a dying weed whacker, lived on ramen and Spite, kept applying for jobs during the day and working on my projects at night. 4 months in, I was down to my last few $100s when I got an email from someone named Harlow who'd seen my algorithm presentation posted on YouTube. Side note, apparently someone recorded that. Internet never forgets, I guess. Harlow wanted to meet for coffee to discuss my approach to trend prediction. I assumed it was either a scam or someone looking for free work. But free coffee is free coffee when you're surviving on cup noodles. Turned out, Harlow was legitimate, ran a tech incubator for early-stage projects. More importantly, Harlow thought differently, asked questions no one had asked before, saw potential where others saw peculiarity. Our coffee meeting turned into dinner. Dinner turned into an offer to join Harlow's incubator with a small stipend. Not enough to live comfortably, but enough to upgrade from ramen to actual groceries occasionally. I called Mom to share the news. Her response, was this a real job with benefits or just another computer hobby? Deleted her number from my favorites list that night. The incubator was chaotic. Brilliant people with terrible social skills crammed into an open office with inconsistent air conditioning and too much Red Bull. I felt at home immediately. Under Harlow's mentorship, I expanded my algorithm into something truly innovative. We pivoted from simple trend prediction to a tool that could identify emerging technology and market opportunities before they hit mainstream awareness. The work consumed me. 16-hour days, dreams in code. My studio apartment became basically a storage unit for my body when it wasn't at the office. 8 months in, we had a working prototype. Early tests showed remarkable accuracy, 78% predictive rate across multiple sectors. Harlow started making noise about seeking funding to develop it further. I sent my parents an update email. Dad replied with congratulations. Mom asked if this meant I'd finally start earning a real salary soon. Another 6 months of refinement, testing, rebuilding. The algorithm got smarter, more accurate, started identifying patterns even we hadn't anticipated. Harlow brought in more resources, more talent. A year and a half after graduation, we were invited to present at Tech Vanguard, one of the biggest innovation conferences in the country, the kind of event where careers are made, where industry leaders scout for acquisition targets, where a certain billionaire was scheduled to give the keynote address. I spent weeks preparing for our presentation, practiced until I could recite it in my sleep, upgraded from my usual hoodie to a decent button-down, even got a haircut that wasn't from Supercuts. The night before the conference, I made the mistake of checking Instagram. Benjamin had just posted photos from his promotion celebration. My mother had commented, "So proud of my nephew. Always knew you were destined for greatness." She hadn't commented on any of my posts in over a year. I closed the app, turned off my phone, opened my laptop, and made one final tweak to our presentation deck. Tomorrow would be just another day of being defective in all the ways that actually mattered, or so I thought. Update 2. Fun fact. The human body can't tell the difference between excitement and terror. Same chemicals, same physical responses, same feeling of your internal organs trying to escape through your throat. That's what I kept telling myself as I stood backstage at Tech Vanguard, waiting for our presentation slot. My hands were sweating so much my phone kept registering phantom touches. Classic body betrayal. Like when your voice cracks during a class presentation, but with potentially career-ending stakes. Harlow noticed my rapid descent into blue screen of death territory and handed me a bottle of water. Reminded me that we'd practiced this 100 times, that our algorithm worked, that I knew what I was talking about better than anyone else in the building. Easy for Harlow to say. Harlow could make small talk with a brick wall and somehow charm it into moving. 5 minutes before we went on, I checked my phone one last time. 3 new Instagram notifications, all from Benjamin. Photos from some charity gala. My mother front and center in her pearls and practiced smile. Benjamin looking like someone had ordered a young executive from a catalog. The family I was supposedly part of, looking perfectly functional without its defective component. I switched my phone to airplane mode. Now or never. The presentation room was smaller than I'd imagined, but packed wall to wall with people. Real people. Important people. People who made decisions about millions of dollars in funding. People who could make or break careers with a single LinkedIn connection. I don't remember walking onto the stage. Don't remember the first 2 minutes of our presentation. My body was on autopilot, mouth forming words my brain had rehearsed into muscle memory. Then something clicked. That weird flow state where your conscious mind steps back and lets your actual abilities take over. The thing gamers call being in the zone. The thing my mother would have called being antisocial. I walked the audience through our algorithm, showed them real-time demonstrations, explained how it could predict emerging technology trends weeks or even months before they hit mainstream awareness, how it had identified 5 major market shifts during testing, each one verified by subsequent events. The Conda session afterward was brutal. Technical questions, ethical concerns, scalability issue, each one a potential landmine, each one an opportunity to prove that my different way of thinking was actually an asset, not a defect. When it was over, Harlow was grinning like someone who just found a legendary item drop. Several people handed us business cards. Someone from a venture capital firm asked for a follow-up meeting. And then, as we were packing up our equipment, a staff member approached, asked if we could come backstage immediately. No explanation, just urgency. For one paranoid moment, I thought we'd somehow violated some conference rule, that we were being kicked out, that I'd screwed everything up. Instead, we were led to a small green room where 3 people in expensive suits were waiting with tablets and serious expression, and with them, checking something on his phone with casual intensity, was him, the billionaire, the keynote speaker, the tech mogul whose face was on magazines and whose products were probably in everyone's pockets. I'll call him M for this post, not his real initial, but I'm not trying to get sued here. M looked up from his phone, saw us, and immediately started talking about our algorithm. Not small talk, not pleasantries, straight into technical questions that showed he'd not only watched our presentation, but understood it on a level most people wouldn't. My brain did that thing where it temporarily forgets how to human. Mouth opened, no words came out. Classic NPC dialogue failure. Thankfully, Harlow jumped in, explained some of the technical details. M nodded, asked more questions. Eventually, my speech function rebooted, and I managed to join the conversation. What was supposed to be a 5-minute meeting stretched to 20. M was particularly interested in how our algorithm processed non-standard datasets, the noise most analytics ignored. Turned out that was exactly what made our approach unique. What made my different way of thinking valuable? As we were wrapping up, M checked his watch and made a decision, asked if I'd be willing to join him on stage during his keynote to demonstrate the algorithm live. No pressure or anything, just presenting to 3,000 people alongside one of the most famous tech innovators in the world. I said yes before my anxiety could veto the decision. The next 2 hours were a blur of preparation. M's team grilled me on what I would say, how the demo would work. They gave me a company shirt to wear. Apparently my button-down wasn't on-brand enough. Fair. Standing in the wings of the main stage, watching M captivate thousands of people with his vision of the future, I had a moment of pure clarity. This was what my mother had never understood. Being different wasn't a defect. It was just operating on a different protocol, processing information in ways others couldn't. When M called me on stage, my legs moved automatically. The lights were blinding. The audience a dark mass of indistinct faces. M introduced me, explained what our algorithm did, then stepped back. For 10 minutes, I demonstrated our technology to the tech world's elite, showed them how it predicted trends, how it found patterns in chaos, how it saw connections that human analysts missed. When it was done, M shook my hand, told the audience this was exactly the kind of innovation that excited him, the kind that came from thinking differently, from seeing what others missed. Someone took photos, several someones, actually, professional event photographers, audience members. The moment was captured from multiple angles in high resolution. Afterward, M's chief of operations handed me a business card, said they'd like to discuss acquisition options for our technology, asked if we could meet the following week. That night, I couldn't sleep, kept replaying the day in my mind. The presentation, the meeting, the keynote. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing with notifications, LinkedIn connection requests, Twitter mentions, Instagram followers, none from my family. They had no idea what had just happened. The acquisition process took months. Legal meetings, technical assessments, due diligence, numbers with more zeros than I'd ever seen attached to my name. Harlow handled most of the negotiation side, while I focused on explaining the technical aspects. By the time the deal closed, my bank account had transformed from ramen budget to could buy a house with cash. Not billionaire status, obviously, but financial security I'd never imagined. I moved to a new apartment, bought furniture that wasn't from IKEA, got a decent mattress for the first time in my adult life, started seeing a therapist to process, well, everything. My role at M's company evolved over the next year. From consultant to team lead to heading an entire research division. People actually listened when I spoke, asked for my opinion, valued my different perspective. Through it all, my family remained largely oblivious. I'd scaled back contact to holiday texts and occasional email. My mother still sent me articles about real careers and Benjamin's promotions. My father still ended every conversation with awkward silences. Nothing had changed on their end. Then came the email, a family-wide announcement about my mother's 60th birthday, a significant celebration being planned. Everyone was expected to attend, of course, to bring appropriate gifts, to celebrate the wonderful mother-slash-sister-slash-wife she was. I marked the email as read and closed my laptop. 2 days later, scrolling through my phone during a tedious budget meeting, I came across the photos from Tech Vanguard, the ones of me on stage with M professional quality, perfect lighting, me looking competent and valued, M looking impressed. Something clicked. After the meeting, I called a framing shop, ordered their most expensive frame, the kind with museum-quality glass and acid-free matting, the kind my mother would immediately recognize as costly, the kind she'd show her friends. When the framed photo arrived, I studied it carefully. It was perfect. Me and M, shaking hands on stage. Both of us spotlit. The audience a blur of attentive faces. The giant screen behind us displaying our algorithm's interface. I wrote a card to go with it. Simple. Just 5 words. Not defective, just differently optimized. Packaged it carefully. Sent it with signature, required delivery, to arrive exactly on her birthday. Then I waited. The first call came at 2:17 p.m. on her birthday. I watched my phone vibrate on my desk. My mother's contact photo staring up at me. Let it go to voicemail. Second call, 2:26 p.m. Declined. Third call, 4:05 p.m. Declined. Text messages started appearing. Please call me. We need to talk. Who is that in the photo with you? Ethan, please answer your phone. I muted the conversation. Went back to work. That evening, my father called. First time he'd called directly in, probably years. I let it ring through. He left a voicemail asking me to call my mother, who was very upset. Said we needed to clear the air. By the next morning, my phone showed 17 missed calls. Voicemails from my mother, father, and even Benjamin. Text messages from extended family asking what was happening. An email from my mother with the subject line, "Please read." I deleted it without opening. The calls continued for 3 days, then shifted to daily, then every few days. Each one sent straight to voicemail. Each voicemail deleted without being played. 2 weeks after her birthday, my mother sent a friend request on LinkedIn. That was new. She'd never acknowledged my career on professional platforms before. I ignored it. A month later, Aunt Molly reached out, said my mother was beside herself, that she never meant to hurt me, that the photo had been quite a shock, and she just wanted to understand what was happening in my life. I didn't respond. On social media, I noticed changes. My mother had started sharing articles about neurodiversity in the workplace, about different learning styles, about famous innovators who thought differently. Performative understanding. Years too late. Benjamin sent an awkward text congratulating me on my apparent success and asking if we could reconnect as adults. I left him on read. Yesterday marked exactly 6 months since I sent the photo. 6 months of boundaries holding firm. 6 months of my mother realizing that her defective son was now connected to people she would never meet, achieving things she would never understand, living a life completely beyond her ability to criticize or control. The ultimate revenge isn't making someone suffer. It's thriving so completely that their opinion becomes irrelevant, their approval unnecessary, their judgment powerless. This morning I received an invitation. A speaking opportunity at a conference for neurodivergent youth interested in tech careers. A chance to tell kids like me that being different isn't being defective, that processing information in unique ways is a feature, not a bug. I accepted immediately. As I was confirming the details, my phone buzzed with a text. My mother again. This one simply said, "I'm sorry for everything. Please call me." I didn't delete it this time. Just marked it as read and put my phone away. Maybe someday I'll be ready to have that conversation, to hear her explanations or apology, to decide if there's anything worth salvaging. But not today. Today, I'm too busy being defective in all the ways that matter.